a pleasure to speak with you both. I'm very interested in this film. I am, of course, a fan of the idea of Hunter S. Thompson as well as Hunter S. Thompson. There's two things out there in my mind of how that works too. But I guess I'll start with you, Patricia. What's it like adapting a book that's loosely based? It's like that a couple removed.
Yeah, well, I mean, at first when I thought about this, I loved the work that people had done in the past about Hunter S. Thompson, but it was very much caricatures, kind of this larger than life. And there's a lot of emotional vulnerability to hide behind in that kind of largeness of a caricature. So when I first read the book, it was fiction, but it was heavily inspired by her time actually working for Hunter S. Thompson. I don't know him personally like that. I didn't live at his house. So it was very, very inspired by her experience with him. But then she changed it. So it was actually fiction. So then when I read it, there were threads underneath about codependence and addiction and writer's block and being trapped in your own celebrity or beauty as commodity. But they were like thin little threads. And I really wanted to expand on those. Willem didn't want to play like a caricature of Hunter S. Thompson, and I didn't want him to either, but we wanted to be inspired by the flavor of him. And he was like so pivotal to me as a writer growing up and still is. Yes, I have tremendous respect for him. So that's part of what is fun actually about being in the movie business is you can change things to make them work for a feature. Things might work in a book, a fiction book, and they don't work in a feature. So it was actually Ethan Hawke's idea to make this big change from the book to the movie that is in the movie now.
Camila, if I can ask, anyone who's seen Williman work always assumes that he is he is tension, but he's not. He's such a nice guy. He is just love, and he's such a great person. So what was the talk between you two about the fact that there is kind of a tension between both of them? Always, there's always there. It's always kind of in a buzzing in the background.
There's so many types of tension between Walker and Ali. I would say that there is at points sexual tension, there's professional tension, there's intellectual tension, there's also simultaneously a lot of love that's developed between the two of them towards the middle and end of the film, and in a lot of ways, a lot of respect, even though Walker, reserves his desire to show that and let it be known. But uh, like you said, Willem, you would think is, and I always thought was very intimidating and very, um, he always plays these kind of daunting, serious characters, and then you see him in this film, and you think, wow, he's got such an ability to be silly and childlike and goofy and free in his own body. His physicality is unmatched, and we just played with different levels of tension. Where do we want to feel it? Where do we want to let it slide? How do you kind of dilute the tension? I think a lot of that is, editing with Patricia, and I mean, Patricia's editing and her directing, kind of sitting and stuff for a while, and just playing with different levels of the nuance of it, and how many different variations of tension there are.
Patricia, if I can ask, now you first directed a couple episodes of Medium, I think 15 years ago or so. What was the the idea to come back into directing? Like, was there a reason for the time in between? It was just something you enjoyed but didn't like jump into directly, or is it just the right movie in the right place?
Well, they came and offered me this part. It was a different director at the time, and then she got busy, so they came back to me and offered it to me as the director. So it kind of just came together. But the themes in this movie, let me just back up. I really hate movies these days where they make everything so obvious. Like if there's a Me Too moment or codependent moment or addiction moment, it's like we have to talk about your addiction and what do we do? And you're an addict. And the whole movie becomes about this one thing where that's not what happens in life. We have these competing threads of things happening and we're not aware of them at the time. And then you see how they build into what these relationships are. So these undercurrents that were in the book about addiction, codependence, trying to earn someone's love for you, um, blurred boundaries, mutual betrayals, feeling trapped in your own celebrity and losing your voice as an artist, and feeling afraid that you're going to lose your capacity to perform as an artist. All those threads were super interesting in this material to me.
Well, thank you for saying that about the stories and the overt winks and nods that happen a lot. I just think that's lazy writing. Like if you made better characters, if you wrote better things, we would get it. We'd come on board. We'd go for the ride. But a lot of times now,
Also, I want a movie where people talk about it after, where you and your friends are going, no, but remember when she said that to her and she looked at her like that? I think she did have a crush on him. Or she said this little thing, or whatever that conversation is, how different things poke out to us. I like that conversation about film. I don't like everything to be so obvious. It really bothers me.
if I could extend off that, for both of you, what was the last film you both saw that you wanted to talk about it after, or you had to kind of have a conversation after the film?
I was just saying I binge watched Adolescence, and I watched it with my boyfriend and my mother and his mother, and we all had different perspectives. We all thought different things happened at different times. We all had different opinions about it, and it was four people in a room, and we just had completely different experiences of it. It was incredible, and I was like, that's my favorite. Patricia always said, like, I don't want to tie everything in a box. I don't want to tie, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be every question is answered. It's nice to leave a little bit of mystery and, like, for the audience to fill in the blanks. And I personally love watching something where we walk out and I'm like, huh, like, I don't know if I love Walker or if I hate him, or I don't know how I feel about either of these characters or what happened. And that's my favorite kind of film to watch, and also my favorite kind of film to make.
I mean, I haven't been watching a lot the last couple years because honestly, I forgot all my passwords and I can't watch anything.
I'll give you my passwords, Patricia. I'll take them.
Don't make them all the same.
Account.
Don't make them all the same too. Don't make them all the same password either. We're trying to be safe
I
here.
hope Severance is giving you
I can't watch anything
membership.
except I watched a bunch of movies when I voted. So I think there was a lot of conversation around Honora with my friends about, like, was she really empowered or not? Like when she breaks down at the end, um, did she feel really used? Did she feel empowered sexually? Did she love him? Is this such a powerful thing to do? So there was a lot of things, I think, also entitlement and that kind of his personality. And there was a lot of things I think that were interesting threads to talk about in that movie.
There was some great movies this award season. I talked about Honora as well. Nickel Boys was one I talked a lot about with many people as well. So, can you, I used to say this for them, but I kind of want to know just to have fun with it. Patricia, what was the moment for you as a director when you got a scene or things just worked out, thing you were worried about, when you got it and it's that old Hollywood, we've got a movie moment? You're like, this is the thing, we've got it. Oh my God, we've got a movie.
Well, definitely their fight scene. There's an optical illusion that happened in that scene that's in the movie that isn't what it looks like. I'll just say that. I feel like it's a bit of a spoiler, so I'm not going to get into much more than that. But there were conscious decisions that the DP Bobby Bukowski and I made before we made the movie. Like, okay, with close-ups, let's go too close for close-ups in certain moments. When you're inside his kind of pressure cooker, there's a scene with his editor, and sometimes he moves in and out of focus. Or right now we're used to everything being hyper focused. Like actually high def is 10 times more sharp than the human eye, like for sports and every little sweat thing. That's not how movies were in the 70s. And I like this mercurial thing you can't quite catch all the time. And so there's a moment where he is so angry and full of rage, and he's almost like King Kong. And he's saying, like, look at me, I am King Kong. Like, that moment is great. And then there's this fight moment where at first she's sorry. She goes through a lot of transitions. I don't want to spoil it, but there's there's something that comes out of her even after the fight in a moment with me where she really chooses herself. She chooses herself, and it's almost like everything has to be taken from her. Her whole dignity, her everything, every excuse, every bullshit she's made up, everything is taken from her, and that's the thing that rises up is her own dignity. Like, no, I'm not doing that. Whatever that little voice is under everything.
Even if I can ask, when it comes to Allie, she starts off a little bit off put, but soon enough she puts him on a pedestal, and then there becomes this idea of ownership between her and him, and the way it works too. So how did you see that relationship and how it grew because of the way they were together?
Well, I saw it as a mutual betrayal, and I saw her saying no, but quickly, oh, okay, and explaining it away. And that's what codependents do. That's what a people pleaser does. No. And then the addict doesn't listen to you, and they push one more time, or two more, or three more times, and then the codependent goes, oh, okay. Oh yeah, I could do that. Blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But Cammy, you talk to that.
No, I mean, even there's a scene in the beginning where Patricia's character, Claudia, says, stop saying no, right? And it's such a small line, but it's so early on that she realizes, like, in order to survive and get like really dig my nails into this, like, I'm going to have to bend in a lot of ways that I'm not comfortable with or used to, or prior thought that I wouldn't cross these boundaries or these lines. And it's what happens when you are um a little bit enamored with someone in the way that she is, or deeply respects Walker's work and his brilliance, and who is she? She's an unknown writer working as a bartender, and she's this incredible legend, this Daniel Day of writing, and she's sitting there just eager to learn, to get the job done, to pick up whatever she can. And I think that you know, you start mixing drugs in there, and you're living with someone and it's getting really intimate, and just all of the lines start to blur. He's an addict, and then you got to kind of keep up. And then her friend comes to visit her, and says something, her friend sees in her that she's crossing the line, and she's crossing it big time. And even in that moment, Allie's kind of like, well, you don't understand it, like you haven't been around. And it's the same thing as, defending an addict and kind of defending your choices. So it's a very complicated, it's a very slippery slope. Once you start, you kind of can't stop until something big happens. That kind of is a straw that broke the camel's back, which
Is in there. Yeah. And then at the beginning of the movie, there's a very quick moment where she's packing her bag and she puts all these books in her journal that she's going to write, and she puts in this book, Daughters of Alcoholics, and then she grabs it and throws it back out. So that was already primed. That patterning of love and addiction, and the love you're going to get is from the same person who's the addict, who is an unprocessed child and acts out and is harmful and all these kinds of things. That patterning was already within her, and that patterning was going to play out with people in her life.
If I can ask too, what was the conversation with Willem about? I mean, of course, he is someone who kind of transforms a role, but you have, like I said, loosely based. So it could be this is your idea of Hunter, but this is also your idea of Walter. Like, this, what is your idea? And so, what was something that he brought to it that kind of helped you out?
Well, he didn't. Yeah, he didn't want to do a caricature of that, and I think he felt also that the themes were common enough through many different kind of people we had seen throughout the business, that there were common denominators in a way of these larger than life people. Um, I remember at one point he was saying he was mean to her in a scene and it hurts her. And then he was nice and gave her some wisdom and some warmth and some, kind of tutoring and being a mentor to her. And he was like, loses it and is mean to people, and then he backtracks and feels bad about it. Can't really apologize the way a narcissist can't really apologize, because there's too much shame in seeing what they do. Um, but then he would give her this kind of gift. So that's part of what's so beguiling and confusing about these kind of people, because they are mean to you, and then they are lovely to you, and they are weird and act out, and then they're incredible and special,
Yeah, if I can ask Patricia, about both of you actually, like, you know, in the idea of that, and especially in Hollywood too, there is a guru or an exalted figure or something that kind of just holds sway. Like, did either of you have an idea of mind of who Walker was in that sense to these people and the people who flocked to him? And have you run into anything like that in your life, in your mind, really?
Oh yeah, like a lot of different versions of kinds of people that are incredibly charming. And I mean, I've seen so many different versions of those people, including like, oh God, what's his name? Oh, it'll come to me. But anyway, we were in Lost Highway together, and then he was on trial for killing his wife. And there's a lot of people that cover a lot of pain and destructiveness with charm in Hollywood. Let's just say that.
I do want to ask too that the drug scenes and how that all works too. It's so funny. Anytime you have like a drug scene anywhere, it feels equally in time and then also of the 70s. And I don't know why. Maybe that's where I grew up, where I think that every drug came from the 70s somehow, outside of like the little pills with Pac-Man on them these days or whatever. But outside of that, so what was the idea of those kind of like drug orgies of things happening? How did you want to kind of like shoot those, and what were your thoughts on getting those scenes to kind of work right for who he was and the group that was with him?
Well, in a way, there's this kind of like Pinocchio going to the wild boy's island. She goes on this adventure. She's innocent, but then she starts exploring. And when Pinocchio and the wild boys go to that island, then they can smoke and drink, and don't have to go to school, and they're having fun. And then they start growing donkey ears, and it's a nightmare. And so she's kind of on that journey. For me, this period of like drugs and exploring and growing up and finding your sexuality and finding your sexual power and exploring your beauty and dressing up and feeling empowered by that. That whole period of time was powerful in my own life, interesting to me. We didn't have a lot of money, so I had to pre-think of how to shoot them so they were different. So a friend of mine, Aaron, and his students worked on all the cartoon work, and I wanted to sort of have a tip back to Zap magazine and all those kinds of things. Keep on trucking, and on that whole period of time, and then we had this little Sean Penn scene with mushrooms, and so Willem's talking. So I just did a split screen with a stationary lens, and I had Willem in normal speed and Cammy in slow motion, and Sean Penn in fast speed. And Cammy had to learn her dialogue like super fast, like, wow, Walker, this is great. She had to do it like that. And then, so when we slowed it down, it sounded normal.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you very, very much. We will make sure to talk about this, and I hope everyone in your world is happy and healthy.
Thanks so much.
Thank you
Pleasure.
so much.
Have a great day.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye.